A quest that began in 2019 has finally yielded results, according to the federal government of Nigeria. With the release of gas accompanied with crude oil, Gombe and Bauchi states have now joined the list of states with oil reserves in Nigeria. Arise Business and Energy Correspondent Onyi Sunday was present at the official flag-off of the Kolmani Integrated project in Bauchi State, which had President Muhammadu Buhari and other senior government officials in attendance.
Initially awarded to Shell and Chevron in 1993, oil prospecting license 809 and 810 gave way to the exploration and drilling of the Kolmani River. Both companies had initially reported sub-commercial discovery of hydrocarbons in their blocks until the latest efforts. Almost 3 decades after, prominent Nigerians, experts and stakeholders in Nigeria's oil and gas sector are gathered here to celebrate the discovery of hydrocarbons in commercial quantity in Nigeria's northern region and to flag off the Kolmani Integrated project.
This discovery had emanated from our charge to NNPC to re-strategize and expand its oil and gas exploration footprints to the frontier basins of Anambra, Dahomey, Sokoto, Benue Trau, Chad, and Bida basins.
With NNPC as the concessionaire, Africa Oilfield Limited Consortium as a strategic partner for the integrated development of OPL 809 and 810.
This discovery has enabled the understanding of the frontier basins in the reef system from Nigeria, with potentials for further large-scale finds. Our teams are currently engaged in several exploratory activities and have commenced re-entry into the Chad Basin.
Meanwhile, fuel shortage, which returned in some areas of Lagos early this week, has extended to the state's nooks and crannies, amid growing concerns from motorists over the reason of the shortage. According to reports, most fuel stations in the state are closed, while there are just a handful of stations with large lines for fuel, as opposed to the government-regulated price of 169 naira to 170 naira for NNPC retail outlets and the major marketers throughout the nation. Some independent filling stations selling fuel are selling it for 210 naira, 215 naira, and 220 naira per litre. For more on those developments, we're now being joined from Arise Abuja studio by oil and gas expert Dan Kunle. Mr. Dan Kunle, thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ruben Abati, and good afternoon, my professors, seniors there.
Thank you very much.
Nigerian audience at home and abroad.
Well, the presidential outing in Bauchi by President Muhammadu Buhari with regard to the oil find, the integrated oil and gas operation in the Kolmani field, 1 to 4 in the Gongola Basin. Can you tell us why this oil discovery in the inland basin, in the Gongola Basin, is so important? And the fact that the federal government of Nigeria is saying exploration will continue in the frontier basins, from the Dahomey Basin, the Anambra Basin, to the Chad Basin, and to all the upper Benue Trough, and all the other basins. Why is this important?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruben Abati. This is long overdue. I don't know, our national aspirations may be at times construed with perhaps a lack of political will. Because if our national aspirations were for energy independence and appropriate energy mix as a nation, what we would have done long time ago was to subject all the inland basins to thorough investigation, because we are endowed that advanced sciences have provided a lot of tools for us. So, and that means you can apply some of these tools appropriately, seismic tools and geological and geophysical examinations apparatus. So it's long overdue that this will have happened. But having said that, it's still good to look at the surrounding issues about this celebration. It's good. Any additional reserve we can find in commercial quantity is good for the country. It's also good for strategic balance, because the Delta Basin of Nigeria, Niger Delta Basin of Nigeria, has been too agitated in the last recent years. So it's good if we have a spread of hydrocarbon availability in Nigeria in commercial quantity and producible economically. It will be good. So I think it's good. It's a good and audacious step forward. But there are still many issues to cross, because this is at exploration level.
Okay.
Until we really get all the data,
When you say it's at exploration level, it should be recalled that about more than 10 years ago, Shell and is it Chevron did some exploration work, seismological, inquiries in the same Kolmani fields, and they came up with a report that they could not find oil and gas in commercial quantities. But now we're being told by the Nigerian government that, look, we can do up to 200,000 barrels of crude per day from a refinery that will be set up, 500 million standard cubic feet of gas, and that, even a fertilizer plant will be out of this integrated operation. Are these probabilities or proven results, results that the federal government of Nigeria can talk about? So what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with probabilities or certainty?
Yeah, doctor. Yes. In geophysics, everything is probability in geophysics until you really find the proven reserve of what you are looking for. Everything in geophysics is probability. But with good intensive search, you may be lucky at times to move in one direction and you find good reserve. You may occasionally go in the wrong direction and you may not find oil. I give you a typical example. When 2 or 3 international oil companies were in Niger Republic and they left. But when the Chinese went to Niger Republic, through careful effort, they find oil. The same thing with Sudan. Some international oil companies lost money in Sudan, the old Sudan, before Southern Sudan was severe out of Northern Sudan. So in geophysics at times, you may not be able to find oil at the exact place you are looking for. So you need additional time and intensive effort, proper search, application of appropriate tools, and you need to be patient. So it is that investment, that initial investment in time, resources, and putting the right apparatus together that we have not had consistently in the last 40 years. That is why we have not been able to exactly know where we have enough reserve to produce in our inland river basin, in our inland basins. You can see that Ondo has enough heavy crude, but it's not competitive to produce because heavy crude is very difficult to handle. So in this case, if Kolmani is able to have a proven reserve, that will now be subject to calculations, producibility, the economics, and the scaling. So this is still a journey. We wait for the upstream regulatory authority to keep us updated as this effort is being driven. So we may be able, if we are able to attract some international companies with appropriate apparatus to help us do same in Lower Benue Trough, in Chad Basin, in Bida Basin, and in Sokoto Basin. Anambra Basin to a good level has been proven, because between Kogi State and Anambra and Enugu, there are some proven gas around those areas. So I think to go back to your additional question that they are planning to put some midstream, downstream investment. Yet all this will still depend on the economics of the reserve. So if you are planning a refinery based on what reserve? Is that reserve proven? Is it producible economically? Can you scale it? So so if you are planning a refinery around that area, you must also remember that you have a refinery in Kaduna. Are you going to scrap Kaduna, or are you going to calculate the cost of piping the crude from Kolmani to Kaduna, or whatever? All these are still probabilities until you have your proven reserve, producible, and you work the economics, the econometry tabulated, before you can start to say, yes, I will do this investment, I will do that investment. Okay, because everything is going to be based on volume producible. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kunle, how do we balance this with the climate adaptation agenda of the global community? We just came out of COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and there's so much talk about climate adaptation. Even President Muhammadu Buhari said, oh, it's very impressive that we got $3 billion worth of investment, despite all the talk about energy transition. How do we balance this? Could there have been certain comparative options that we could have considered?
That is why my opening sentence, I said, the energy mix aspiration of Nigeria. Renewable, for me, the hinterland of Nigeria have so much comparative advantage and maybe competitive advantage in solar and in hydro. But if we want to optimize our hydrocarbon resources, we also still need to work out the balance, because it's a delicate balance. How much coal am I to use to produce electricity in my country? How much gas am I to use to produce electricity in my country? And how much hydro, how much solar? So all these things we need to sit down. The energy experts in Nigeria must sit down with government, because you need government policy and you need national aspiration to say, this is what I want, this is the level I want to be exposed to the carbon emission. Because that is the issue now. The international pressure on Nigeria, on the developing nations about carbon, is one issue we should not ignore. Because if your production in Kolmani is going to be carbon intensive, you are going to have sanctions from international banks who may not be willing to allow money to flow this way. I am sure maybe Mr. President is well informed more than all of us. We are just ordinary citizens. The $3 billion maybe is already sitting within the cover of Nigeria. But if it is money you are going to raise from abroad, they are going to ask you for the parameters on which you are going to produce the hydrocarbon in those areas, whether you are going to have too much footprint of carbon or not. So this comes to the issue of Nigeria must sit down to do comparative and competitive analysis of whether we should invest more in solar harvesting and turn our solar to power, because the entire hinterland of Nigeria is very potentially huge in solar advantage. So we need to harvest solar, transform the solar to power, and transform part of this power to hydrogen and ammonia. This will give you a good rating in the international arena. And you can also develop your hydro, small, medium, and maybe large scale like Mambila hydro. These are issues we still need to, because after all, we have coal. Why are we not going to start digging out coal that are 20 meter deep, which they may not be too economical, but will you now start digging out coal? So it's good to know our crude oil reserve as a nation and gas, so that we can strategically know that, okay, we have these resources there. Then we now to sit down and analyze the economic implication of their production and the climate balancing. Because we need to balance the climate. The planet Earth is under threat. 8 billion people need to be clothed, they need to be housed, they need to be fed. So the world needs to be very careful about how we utilize our natural resources, because there's a big threat. There's a big threat. So I think this will be balanced as we move on.
Okay, Mr. Kunle.
It requires a lot of balancing.
Yeah, one of the things that President Muhammadu Buhari talked about on that occasion was to appeal to the governments of Bauchi and Gombe states, within whose jurisdiction these oil fields, proposed oil fields fall, to make sure that there's no repeat of the kind of experience we have had in the Niger Delta. And I would like to ask you, beyond government, investors, and exploration and engineering, what is likely to be in this for the common people of Nigeria?
Thank you, Dr. Ruben Abati. You see, this issue of community and the social license you need to do mining of anything, anywhere in the world. Because of the mineral law in Nigeria, every mineral on the soil, under the soil, subsurface, subsea, belongs to federal government. So these two states are now the host. They are the host, and the community within all those corridors must be carried along, because you need to environmentally protect them, and you need to invest in basic health and education and basic infrastructure for them, because they are going to now have this mental picture, like the case in Niger Delta, that, oh, we are now oil rich, even though it's still probable. So you must start preparing them. How I wish I have the means in this country. I will insist that we send more of our children to school. We invest more in education, invest more in good health, invest more in agriculture, so that we can produce Elon Musk, Bill Gates all over the place in Nigeria, instead of all of us thinking, oh, they say they find oil in my community now, I'm going to become a local champion because I'll be able to get some rentier reward and buy a car and build houses, big houses, but later are they sustainable? So I hope the state government, President Buhari has warned carefully, it's a good caution. The state government should start trying to invest in basic amenities to propel good education for the children of those areas, so that their eye will not be on the oil, if at all there is enough oil eventually down the line. So I'm not saying they should not benefit, but please invest more in education so that you can produce talented children. The world is moving away from physical mineral resources to knowledge economy. So I'm not, Nigerians should stop screaming. I'm not envious of locations that they find all these materials, but I support that we should guide the community carefully.
On that note, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Kunle, for joining us and for your insights on the Kolmani oil fields 1 to 4 and the prospects for Nigeria and the interests of affected communities. Thank you very much indeed.